Here's a strong, suspenseful hook you can use for your video. On a quiet suburban street, the Carter family seemed like the perfect neighbors, but one summer morning, everything changed. Inside their home, a scene so chilling awaited investigators that no one who saw it could ever forget, and the question that haunts the town remains: who, or what, was responsible? If you want, I can also craft 5 alternative hooks that are punchy and tailored for YouTube true crime viewers, keeping suspense high. Do you want me to do that? Maplewood Lane was known as one of the quietest streets in the small town of Brookhaven. The road was lined with tall trees that cast soft shadows across the sidewalks, and nearly every house looked warm and welcoming. Neighbors greeted each other in the evenings, children rode their bicycles up and down the street, and the sound of lawn mowers was common on weekends. It was the kind of place where people believed nothing truly bad could happen. In the middle of the street stood a modest 2-story house with pale blue walls and white windows. The house belonged to the Carter family. Daniel Carter had lived there with his wife Laura and their teenage son Ethan for nearly a decade. The family kept mostly to themselves, but they were always polite and friendly when neighbors passed by. Daniel worked long hours as an accountant in the nearby city, while Laura spent much of her time volunteering at the community center. Ethan attended the local high school and was often seen riding his bicycle along the quiet streets in the late afternoon. Life on Maplewood Lane followed a calm and predictable routine. Every morning, cars slowly left driveways as people went to work, and by evening the street returned to its peaceful rhythm. Nothing ever disturbed the calm atmosphere of the neighborhood. But one warm summer morning, something unusual caught the attention of a nearby resident. The front door of the Carter house was slightly open. At first it seemed harmless, as if someone had forgotten to close it properly during the night. Yet as the hours passed, the door remained open and the house stayed strangely silent. That small detail soon became the beginning of a mystery the town would never forget. When the police officers arrived at the Carter house, they expected to find something simple and easy to explain. The open door could have meant a forgotten lock or a minor disturbance. But the moment they stepped inside, a strange feeling filled the air. The house was silent in a way that felt unnatural. The living room appeared completely normal. The couch cushions were neatly arranged. Family photographs stood on a small table, and a television remote rested beside a stack of magazines. Sunlight passed through the curtains, lighting the room in a calm and peaceful way. At first glance, nothing seemed wrong. As the officers walked further into the house, small details began to change the atmosphere. The dining room looked different. One of the chairs had been pushed away from the table and was lying on its side. A glass had shattered on the floor, leaving small pieces scattered across the tiles. The tablecloth was partly hanging down as if it had been pulled during a sudden struggle. A heavy sense of tension filled the air as the officers continued toward the kitchen. There, they made a discovery that immediately confirmed something terrible had happened. Daniel Carter was lying motionless on the kitchen floor. The scene showed clear signs of violence, and it was obvious that the situation was far more serious than anyone had expected. The officers quickly secured the house and called for investigators. Every corner of the home was searched carefully. As the investigation moved upstairs, another heartbreaking discovery was made in the master bedroom. Laura Carter had also been found lifeless. But as the officers continued searching the quiet house, they realized someone important was missing. Ethan Carter was nowhere inside the home. The discovery inside the Carter home quickly turned the quiet neighborhood into the center of a growing investigation. Police officers began searching every room again, carefully checking closets, bathrooms, and storage spaces. But no matter where they looked, there was no sign of Ethan Carter. At first, investigators believed Ethan might have been another victim who had somehow been taken from the house. The idea of a kidnapping seemed possible, especially after the violent scene found in the kitchen and bedroom. However, when detectives entered Ethan's room, they noticed several details that made the situation more complicated. The room looked calm and organized. His school books were stacked neatly on a desk, and a small lamp sat beside them. Posters of sports teams were pinned to the wall, and his bed was made as if the night had ended normally. Nothing in the room suggested a violent struggle or sudden attack. But detectives soon realized that some important items were missing. Ethan's backpack was gone, along with his phone charger. His favorite hoodie, which he often wore to school, was also missing from the closet. When officers checked the garage, they discovered that Ethan's bicycle was no longer there. These details created a new and troubling possibility. Later that day, investigators reviewed security cameras from houses near Maplewood Lane. One camera facing the street had captured a blurry figure riding a bicycle late at night. The person wore a hoodie that covered most of their head, making it difficult to clearly identify them. However, the timing of the video matched the estimated time of the murders. The missing teenager was no longer just a victim in the case. Ethan Carter had now become a key mystery in the investigation. As investigators searched deeper into Ethan Carter's background, they began to uncover a side of his life that no one in the small town of Brookhaven had ever seen. To neighbors, he had always been the quiet boy who rode his bicycle alone and avoided large gatherings. Teachers described him as intelligent but withdrawn, someone who rarely spoke in class and preferred working on his own. He didn't have many friends, and most people assumed he was simply shy. But when detectives examined his online activity, they found something far more unsettling. Ethan had several hidden accounts on different websites, all created under false names. Through these accounts, he had shared disturbing messages about anger, loneliness, and the feeling of being invisible to everyone around him. He often posted late at night, describing thoughts that seemed darker with time. His internet history revealed hours spent reading about real-life crimes, studying the details of investigations, and saving images from police reports. The biggest surprise came when investigators searched his computer. Buried within a private folder were dozens of photographs taken inside his own home, pictures of hallways, doors, and rooms captured late at night while his parents were asleep. The images appeared carefully taken, almost as if someone had been studying the layout of the house. Detectives couldn't ignore the implications. These weren't random photos. Someone had planned them deliberately. Still, there was no clear proof of what Ethan had intended, or whether someone else could have used his computer for a darker purpose. As forensic teams continued examining the Carter house, small pieces of evidence began to reveal strange and confusing details. The kitchen floor, where Daniel Carter had been found, became the main focus of the investigation. Detectives carefully studied every mark, stain, and object left behind. That was when they noticed something unusual near a spilled liquid on the tiles. Several faint footprints could be seen crossing the floor. These prints were not from shoes or boots. They appear to be bare feet. At first, investigators thought the marks might belong to one of the victims, but the shape and size did not match Daniel or Laura. After careful measurement, the prints closely matched the size of Ethan Carter's feet. This discovery created a disturbing possibility. It suggested Ethan had been present in the kitchen after the violence had already occurred. The footprints moved slowly across the floor and continued toward the hallway. But what investigators discovered next made the situation even more mysterious. The footprints suddenly stopped. There were no further marks leading toward the front door, the back door, or any windows. It was as if the person had simply disappeared inside the house. Detectives searched the hallway, staircase, and nearby rooms again, hoping to find more clues, but no additional prints were found. Another strange detail soon appeared. In the garage, investigators discovered a small security camera that monitored the driveway. The device had been manually turned off shortly before midnight on the night of the murders. Whoever had done that must have known exactly where the camera was located. As the investigation continued, detectives began forming a darker theory about what might have happened inside the Carter home. The evidence collected from the house pointed in several directions, but many clues seemed to lead back to Ethan Carter. The photographs of the house on his computer, the disturbing online posts, and the missing bicycle all suggested he might have been involved in some way. Still, nothing clearly explained the full story. Days turned into weeks, and search teams expanded their efforts beyond Brookhaven. Police officers, volunteers, and rescue workers explored nearby fields, abandoned buildings, and wooded areas hoping to find any trace of the missing teenager. Posters with Ethan's photograph appeared across nearby towns, asking anyone with information to contact authorities. Then, nearly 3 weeks after the murders, a hiker walking through a dense forest about 10 miles outside town noticed something unusual near a narrow trail. Hidden behind thick bushes was an abandoned bicycle. When investigators arrived, they quickly confirmed it matched the description of Ethan's missing bike. The tires were slightly damaged, and leaves had already begun to collect around it, as if it had been left there for days. Not far from the bicycle, officers discovered another important clue. Buried beneath a layer of dry leaves was a dark backpack. Inside were school notebooks, a small flashlight, and Ethan's phone. The phone was turned off and showed no recent activity. Despite the discovery, Ethan Carter himself was nowhere to be found, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Months passed, and the Carter case slowly grew cold. The house on Maplewood Lane remained empty, its windows dark and its yard slowly becoming overgrown. Most of the physical evidence had already been examined, and investigators believed they had discovered nearly everything the crime scene could reveal. Still, the unanswered questions continued to trouble the detectives who had worked on the case from the beginning. During a routine review of the investigation files, a forensic analyst decided to look again at the photographs taken inside the Carter home on the day the bodies were discovered. Hundreds of images had been captured from different angles to document every detail of the scene. While carefully studying one of the kitchen photographs, the analyst noticed something strange. The image showed the kitchen floor, where Daniel Carter had been found. Behind him, the kitchen window reflected part of the room and the hallway beyond it. At first glance, the reflection appeared normal, but when the analyst zoomed in, a faint shape could be seen in the glass. The shape looked like the outline of a person. It appeared to be standing in the hallway, partly hidden by shadow. The figure was not clearly visible, but the height and posture suggested it was someone watching from a distance. Investigators checked the original reports again. None of the officers who entered the house that morning remembered standing in that exact position. After enhancing the photograph, the mysterious figure became slightly clearer, but not enough to identify who it was. This unexpected detail raised a chilling possibility. Someone else might have been inside the Carter house that night. Years have passed since the tragedy on Maplewood Lane, but the mystery surrounding the Carter family has never truly faded. The quiet street in Brookhaven eventually returned to its normal routine, yet the memory of what happened inside that blue house still lingers in the minds of those who remember the case. New families moved into nearby homes. Children once again played along the sidewalks, and the neighborhood slowly tried to leave the past behind. The Carter house itself remained empty for a long time. Potential buyers often showed interest at first, but many changed their minds after learning about the history connected to the property. The disturbing crime scene and the strange clues left behind had become widely known throughout the town. Investigators never officially closed the case, but progress became rare as the years went on. Ethan Carter was never located, and no confirmed sightings of him were ever reported. Some investigators believed he fled the town after the murders and built a new life somewhere far away. Others suspected he may have become lost or died in the forest where his bicycle and backpack were discovered. The mysterious shadow captured in the kitchen window reflection continued to trouble experts. Some forensic analysts believed it suggested another person had been inside the house that night. Others argued the shape might simply be a trick of light captured in the photograph. What remains certain is that the Carter case left behind one of the most unforgettable crime scenes the town had ever known. Even today, the unanswered questions continue to haunt the story of that quiet house on Maplewood Lane.